The following podcast you are about to enjoy features mature themes and adult content. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back for another episode of
The
Hafu It. We are your hosts. I'm Kyoko.
I'm Sakura.
And this week we thought we would talk about manga. Or manga. We know that it's
manga or manga if you're in North America.
Or Kyoko, because I guess we'll start our conversation off with that. I've always called it manga, and I think that I've always known that it was manga, but it just sounded really weird to me growing up like that.
Yeah.
So I've just always said manga.
I love that.
Manga. Oh, no.
You know, Minga.
No.
Gorgeous.
Anyway, we're talking about manga.
We are.
So, there's a slight disclaimer at the beginning of this episode because, as I'm sure all of you are well aware by now, sometimes Sakura and I get a little bit too into the things that we're talking about.
Oh my God.
She gets a little steamy.
Oh.
I know that it's not really a lot, but just so that you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, we just want to cover our bases.
As Sakura pulls on her shirt straps while we're recording this episode. Anyway, yeah.
You're going to teach us about manga?
Oh, yes. All right, students, gather round.
Sensei.
Oh my God, Kyoko-sensei.
Kyoko-sensei, where does manga come from?
Well, Sakura-san. The word manga was actually first coined in 1798 by Santo Kyoden.
Come on, Santo.
But in 1814, the artist Katsushika Hokusai, who was famous for ukiyo-e and a different performance, was the first to use the word manga as the title for his sketchbooks that were titled Hokusai manga.
Interesting.
Manga was actually literally translates to whimsical or impromptu pictures too, which is really cool.
Right.
Looks like during the rise of Japanese imperialism, the Japanese Empire used manga for spreading propaganda.
We love propaganda.
Which is super interesting about the benefits of Japanese leadership. But after the war, everything kind of changed. So following World War II, Japan was occupied by the Allies, which restricted any propaganda or Japanese militarism. And that meant that Japanese artists had room to explore their artistic styles a little bit more. So
Gorgeous.
At the time, the U.S. brought over their comics and cartoons, which apparently heavily influenced the style of manga at that time, at least.
Interesting.
And with that allowed Tezuka Osamu, who is known as the god of manga in Japanese equivalent to Walt Disney, to create one of Japan's most iconic influential characters, Astro Boy.
Gorgeous.
Which I think even my dad is super into. Today, manga is heavily influenced American comics. And deeply scarring post-war depression manga pivoted from its confident, serious tone to the kawaii style.
Right.
So you see a lot of different art form styles in manga. That's definitely evolved over the decades that it's been around. And thankfully, it gave us pieces like One Piece, Dragon Ball, Pokemon,
One Piece,
and Astro Boy.
Gorgeous.
So that's a little bit of a history background on manga.
I think it's really interesting too, because with manga, a lot of times the writer is also the illustrator.
Totally.
So the person who wrote the story is also the person who drew everything in the manga.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that they go into the way that manga was originally kind of used, at least in its most mainstream form, as propaganda.
Yes.
And to promote Japanese leadership or militarism, because there are a lot of anime and manga themes that are around even dystopic leadership in Japan.
Right.
There's Lelouch of the Rebellion. There's even Gundam Seed is really heavily around that and Japanese militarism.
Yeah.
A lot of the mangas and animes that I watched and read growing up.
Very
had a lot of,
dystopian.
a lot of like
End of
themes
the
around stuff
world.
like that.
Yeah.
Which kind of follows along with Japan's golden age of cinema too, which we'll have to do another episode on in a different season.
Oh, honey, you want to talk about Japanese films? We can talk about Japanese films.
Oh yeah, I did an entire unit on
honey.
it. She knows her stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad that those two kind of portions of entertainment in Japan kind of tie in pretty well to that part of Japanese history and escapism.
I think it's interesting that at one point American comics were influencing Japanese manga.
That probably depends on which historian you're asking.
Because obviously, like, the manga that I know isn't manga from the 1940s, but I don't see any hint of like American, because I used to read comics as well. I don't get any hint of American comic in manga.
To be honest, I would say that statement 100% probably varies depending on where the historian is from.
Now with American comics, with their graphic novels, their comics are now, to me, starting to look like manga.
Yeah, for sure.
So who knows?
The graphic artists. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, a lot of my earlier years in manga and anime were surrounded by themes of similar content. So I think that's really interesting to learn. I didn't know that before today.
Yeah.
We're learning things on the go. Tell me a little bit about your experience in manga.
Oh, let's get
Sakura.
into it. So my experience with manga, I was a little bit late in the game. The city that my family moved us to when I was a kid, that I grew up in, did not have a bookstore that had manga. They had Mosaic Books downtown, which unfortunately did not have it. So we ended up getting chapters in my city probably when I was in middle school. So that's when I started getting into it. So yeah, let's get into the first manga I ever owned. It was Full Metal Alchemist. Volume 1.
Ooh.
That's the first one I ever owned. I got that when I was like 15. To be honest, I got it because that is a manga that I knew already previously. So I was like, that's probably a good one to start with. Anything to do with like magic or anything like that, powers is always something that I'm drawn to.
A good one.
Obviously with alchemy, it's like science based and not like magic based, but same thing. You're still performing some special trick and doing some cool shit. So I'm down. So that was the first manga I ever got into. Almost immediately after, I started getting like more into spooky manga.
Ooh.
So Chibi Vampire is probably my largest manga collection. So I have 3 of the books. Oddly enough, this is a manga that my dad got me for Christmas because he knew I was spooky and I liked manga. So he got me the first book, and I ended up getting the next 3 because it's so good. So if you don't know Chibi Vampire, it is a vampire series that revolves around this one vampire family. One of the members in the family, which is the protagonist, is a special type of vampire. She has a condition where her body actually takes in too much blood. And because she has an excess amount of blood, it will start to leak, pour, and sometimes like projectiles shoot out of her body. So she has to like inject it into other people in order to not have blood pouring out of every orifice of her body. Each one of her family members has like different powers, and it just kind of revolves around her going to school, trying to fit in, the things that vampire teens go through, and growing up a coming of age vampire tale.
Very relatable stuff.
But totally. So I loved that. Spooky ooky. And then I got into Sailor Moon.
Oh, the manga?
Which I think the manga is called The Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon, or The Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, something like that.
Oh.
But that I absolutely got into because I obviously saw the show here in North America before I could get my hands onto the original manga. Um, Things are like a little bit different between the animated series and the manga, but things are pretty close. I loved all the little subtle nuances in Sailor Moon. In the Japanese culture, you know how in like North America, it's the man in the moon,
Yes.
like a guy's face in the moon.
Yeah.
In the Japanese culture, it's a rabbit. So it's an usagi.
Usagi.
And Usagi is Sailor Moon's name in the manga because she's the moon princess.
Oh.
I was like, oh shit, they're getting meta with this.
They're
like
getting
there's
super,
layers,
there's
honey.
symbolism.
There's layers up in
There's history up in this house.
honey. I thought that was really cool. So I really loved the attention to detail that was put into Sailor Moon. One thing that was really interesting with Sailor Moon reading it, Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask are different age categories.
Whatever do you mean?
Which when you're both adults, it's not a big deal. But when someone is 14 and the other person is 17, it's a little bit of a jump.
14 to 17?
So she was 14 and Tuxedo Mask was 17. So he was out of high school, entering university, and she was entering high school as a freshman. So that's kind of interesting. And I know that's touched on quite a bit. There's honestly not too much like you can say negatively about Sailor Moon, but the age gap is the one thing that you can kind of get them on. Yeah. So throughout the first couple series, she's 14, 15, then 16, and then he's 17, 18, and then 19. So again, 3 years isn't that big of a deal once you're an adult.
Yeah.
When you're a teenager, 3 years is a big gap.
Yeah.
Me and my
14.
brother are 3 years apart. When he was 14 and I was 17, there was definitely a very large age gap.
It makes a bigger difference.
I can't even imagine being even remotely attracted to anyone my brother's age back then. So I just I can't understand that.
Yeah.
But also, why couldn't they have just made Tuxedo Mask so that he's like in high school with her, but just like a year above?
Yeah. Why was it necessary?
Why did you have to make it so he was in university and she was in high school?
It was necessary. It was entirely necessary.
It was an integral part of the story. Anyways, so yeah, I'm a huge, for all the negative things I just said about it, I'm a huge fan of Sailor Moon. We talked about it in our anime video, or sorry, our anime podcast. There's so many parts of Sailor Moon that I love so much.
Yeah, we've talked about like rewatching it because they've redone it, like Sailor Moon Crystal.
And there's like Sailor Moon S too.
Totally, yeah. I'm pretty sure
Right?
Sailor Moon Crystal is like exactly the original anime. It's just been reanimated.
But the exact same storyline.
Yeah, I think
Gorgeous.
so. Because I've seen a lot of like comparisons side by side.
Interesting. I'm not up to date with my current Sailor Moon.
Yeah, I'd be totally down to like rewatch it.
Let's do it. So what manga were you into?
Totally.
Get
So
into it. Let the people know.
I've got a bunch of different ones on my list here that kind of vary in genre. I feel like I'm about to expose myself real hard in this episode.
Gorgeous.
But the first ever manga that I read was called Red River. It's also known as Anatolia Story.
Okay.
And to be completely honest, I cannot remember what it was about.
Gorgeous.
I know that there's like a time skip.
Right.
There's like the main character kind of somehow gets thrown back in time to like ancient Egypt,
yes.
I think it was. There's like, it's a shoujo manga. So I was very into like shoujo mangas when I started out. I was actually introduced to mangas, I believe I've mentioned in a different episode too, from a friend who I met in elementary school.
Yes.
And she was like, she's not Asian, but she was like big into Asian culture, and she was that friend who was like, oh, like you're Japanese, like you should know all these things. So I was
she
like,
could
sure.
smell you. She went down the school list and found the one person with a Japanese last name.
She sniffed me out, honey. She knew the Japanese blood was had entered the room.
She was laying out like Botan candy, like a trail.
Like she even knew what that was. Yeah, no, she and I used to hang out a lot in like her basement, because the upstairs area was just for like living, and all the computer and stuff was in her basement, and we'd just sit there. And I think one day she was like, do you want to read this manga with me? And I was like, the fuck is a manga?
You looked at her, you were like, what kind of white nonsense?
I was like, yeah, totally. What kind of white
witchery is this?
Manga. So yeah, she was like, yeah, like you should read this with me. And I was like, not really into comic books or anything at the time, but I was also new to that school at that point in time, so making friends was really important to me. And that seemed like the way to go to start fitting in and making friends. So the first one that we ever read was called Red River. I know that there are a lot. I read a lot of manga growing up.
I love that.
A lot. And it was, for the most part, it was all online. I did eventually buy my own physical copies of two specific mangas that I read growing up.
Yeah.
That I will mention a little bit later on.
We love a physical copy.
But yeah, Red River / Anatolia Story was my first. I definitely I dabbled a lot in shoujo, specifically shoujo mangas that had sex in it. Yeah, was she was actually, again, like the same friend one day. It was a little bit of a weird thing to recall now, that a friend was like, hey, you want to read this, like pretty much this porn with me?
Do you want me to graphically read out loud?
Pretty much
word for word.
So yeah, we were like reading different ones. So I read like Fushigi Yugi. There was a manga that I actually never completed because it was in the process of being done and translated when we were reading it, and it was called Uwasa no Midori-kun.
Right.
And I actually followed up on this manga recently when I was like thinking about this episode to try to figure out how it ended and who she ended up with, because it was another like shoujo manga, but it had some sexy content in it. It was pretty much the premise of this one was that Midori, who was like a junior high student, she had grown up with like a childhood friend that she was like in love with named like Tsubasa.
Okay.
And he had moved away long ago, and then all of a sudden there was this soccer tournament. He now goes to like this all boys soccer school.
Okay.
And he comes to her school, and pretty much like they like meet for the first time since kindergarten, and he like takes her virginity, and then like immediately leaves, like out like on the beach.
He was like, it's mine.
Pretty sure.
He met her. He was like, this is mine now.
Mine. Yeah.
You can't get this back.
Pretty much.
Okay.
He was like a little bit of a player. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And then he like left, and she was like so obsessed that she decided to pretend to be Sakura's like choking on water.
I just don't want to gulp.
Don't gulp into the mic.
I'm not going to gulp into the mic.
That was our new rule today.
You.
Don't gulp into the mic. Yeah, so she was so obsessed with him that she decided to pretend to be a boy.
Oh, she's the man.
Yeah,
with
like
Amanda
she's
Bynes.
the man. Exactly the same premise.
And the Channing Tatum.
Kind of. And yeah. And then she goes to this all-boys soccer school, and she meets someone along the way, of course, another boy.
A different boy.
A better boy. Who's very into her, who finds out very early on that she is not a boy.
Gorgeous.
And helps her, I guess, in her quest to get together with her childhood friend, Tsubasa.
The one that she was meant to be was
there all along. And that's exactly how that ends.
Gorgeous.
So, yeah, that was a real spicy one for us preteens.
We love when boys take your virginity and then disappear.
They're
just gonna fade back into the shadows.
I mean, yes. So that was a really big one. I'm like checking the ones off of my list after I've after I brought them up.
My God.
There was Ayashi no Seres, which was
Ayashi?
which I believe, like, if I'm correct, it was another shoujo manga with a little bit of sexy content in it. She like gets to the age of 18 and then suddenly her family tries to like kill her.
Okay.
And she gets saved at the last minute by someone who was supposed to be the one to kill her and steals her away, and they run away, and she like has no idea what was going on or why. And I'm pretty sure it was because when she turned 18, she like came of age to inherit these like special abilities.
I was just about to say it's probably something to do with like a curse or
so
what were
that's
the
all
abilities?
I remember about this one. I actually think it was like her twin brother or something. It had something to do with her twin brother. Anyway, I remember liking that one a lot. So if you're looking for an old manga to read, that's a good one.
Gorgeous.
I think along the same illustration style, there was another one called Honey X Honey Drops, which is a little bit shorter of a manga. And listen, almost all of the ones I'm about to give you are
Honey
shoujo.
X Honey Drops.
Yeah. So
Gorgeous.
There's a great one. And then we're out of the
Some
shoujo.
names of manga are out of control.
Super, like, just like the English translations of them, right? Because I'm sure
like they brought that to their publisher and they're like, this is what's up.
This is gonna get all of the gaijin to read them.
Oh my God.
On mangafox.com.
All the weebs in North America are gonna eat this shit up.
Yeah, hell yeah. Honey X Honey Drops. Here we go.
God.
So we're out of the shoujo, I guess. I was really into like Fruits Basket too, which is like just picked up again. They're just finished finally season 2 after like I think like a 10-year break from it.
Gorgeous.
And they're gonna come out with a final season.
A clean decade.
Our high school host club, big one for me, which is still really popular. It's on Netflix actually. I've been thinking about rereading it or rewatching it as well. And then my friend and I actually started this manga club in elementary school.
Just the two of you?
It was the two of us.
Gorgeous.
And then this one boy that I had a crush on. And I joined I helped create this club because I wanted to spend more time with him and I wanted to seem cool, like, you know, that cool girl who was into boy stuff.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to read like Naruto during
I can just hang with one of the boys,
this
you know.
club. So she was always one of the boys. So so that's actually how I got started in my Naruto obsession.
And did you get him?
Did
she get him in the end?
I ended up realizing that I wasn't actually that into him. He's just not that into you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I do.
But yeah.
Story of my life.
So that's how I got introduced to Naruto. And actually when we were reading Naruto, it was still ongoing. So I actually stopped reading it, I think, just after Sasuke left, I believe. That was where like I left off with that manga.
I think Naruto has kids now.
They do, yeah.
Like grown-up kids.
There's like a new series, with their kids. We've talked about it a couple times, but
gorgeous.
That was where we left it off, and then I think during quarantine it like made being in Japan like made me think about it again, and I caught up on the final battle, etc. There was another manga called Rurouni Kenshin.
Okay.
If any of you guys out there know this manga or anime, you have to reach out to me because no one I know knows this manga or anime. It's a really good one. It's like very action based. It's about a Rurouni who is like a wandering ex-samurai named Kenshin, who was like known as the Batosai, so the manslayer during the battle that led into the Meiji era. So that was like the point in time in Japan's history where samurais weren't allowed to be walking around with swords anymore. But when he fought during that battle, he was known as Batosai because he was extra skilled and he killed a lot of people. He spilled a lot of blood. But Kenshin himself is like the sweetest man like possible, and he's like a little bit dumb. Like he comes off as this like really unintelligent person wandering about the countryside. He runs into a woman named Kaoru, who obviously becomes his love interest. But for the most part, this manga / anime is very like action based. It's lots of during the Meiji era it takes place down around that time. So if you're into kind of period piece animes or manga, that's definitely like one of my all-time favorites. I've actually considered,
Interesting.
I think the first couple seasons, I think maybe just the first season is available actually on Netflix at this point in time.
Okay.
As of the end of March 2021.
Come on, 2021.
In Canada. So that to this day I'm like still a really big fan of. And then I've talked about this manga a couple times on this podcast, but I can't do like a manga episode and not talk about it. There's Vampire Knight, which we've talked about for, you know, characters that we would like to fuck. Listen, we gave a disclaimer. It's fine.
Kyoko-chan.
So that was one of the very first mangas too that I really was introduced to, and that was the first vampire related one that I got into, because I also got into chibi vampire.
Hell yeah.
Quite a bit. And Vampire Knight, the manga, is actually superior to the anime. The anime actually didn't even get past the first volume, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
I remember when they came out with it and we were like pretty disappointed in it, but the manga is actually like phenomenal. So if any of you guys are into vampire stuff, that's the one to go to.
Gorgeous.
And Vampire Knight is the first volume, like physical volume of a manga that I ever spent money on. So I think I had already like read up until whatever was out at that point, and then I spent a lot of time at the chapters / Indigo manga section.
Right.
And I bought a couple volumes of it. I also bought manga for a manga called Dragon Drive, which is another action-based manga
Drive.
series. I actually cannot tell you what it was about.
Gorgeous.
I actually, like, at the beginning of this podcast was, like, Googling dragon mangas because I knew that I owned this manga and I was, like, really into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember really liking it.
So much manga I've only read once.
Yeah.
Either borrowed it from a friend, like something like that.
Totally.
So I know I've read it. I just like could not tell you anything about it.
No, not at all.
So,
and then I got really into Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail was one of the final like mangas that I ever read.
okay.
And it was incomplete when I was reading it. It's obviously complete now. And then because I was like waiting for chapters of Fairy Tail to come out, I read that artist's first ever series, and it was called Rave Master.
Oh.
For anyone who doesn't know, that's also an anime. So if you're less into manga and more into anime, you can always watch it. But in my opinion, the mangas are always obviously more detailed.
100%.
But I think that that's something that's really nice about mangas versus anime as in comparison to books versus movies in Western culture is that usually the animes follow pretty closely because animes are meant to last like years.
Right.
You know, like, or at least like for the longer series, they're meant to go on for a really long time.
Because they're animated, you can actually show everything.
Things that don't really exist.
Where, in real life.
100%.
Yeah, unless you got the money.
So you're often like not disappointed with the anime or manga versions of anything. Rave Master and Fairy Tail, the last two on my list here. That being said, obviously, like Sakura and I have read a lot of other manga.
The only thing that I'm ever disappointed with a manga that's been translated into an anime is the choice of voice actor. Like
for dub?
For both. Because I'll have in my mind what I think the character sounds like. And if they don't choose a voice actor that's close to what I was envisioning, it's very hard for me to get into the character, especially if I find their voice like annoying or something. I'm like, well, great, you've just destroyed this for me.
That's a really good point to bring up, because
that's the only thing that usually gets me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to bring up, because when I back to Vampire Knight, because when Vampire Knight was turned into an anime, I had spent so much time reading and like getting to know these characters that when I watched the anime, we were disappointed because the vampire brother, the pureblood Kaname, his voice wasn't like as deep as we had expected it to be, because he was this like old vampire, right? And he was hot as hell, and I think his voice was still fine in the anime. It's just that it wasn't what we had imagined.
Yes.
So yeah, there's 100% that expectation versus reality.
And that's just like a personal thing with
Yeah,
myself.
100%.
But yeah, that's usually the only issue I will have with, because they do such a good job at translating the manga to an anime.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Especially if it's a beloved manga, because they know it will only be successful if they do a good job on it.
Yeah.
This isn't like in America where they're going to like Ghost in a Shell
Oh,
and have it fucking bomb.
yikes.
We can get into that on a
Ouch.
different episode.
Or maybe during our YouTube
Yeah.
our YouTube sessions.
I haven't
this
seen that
summer.
movie. I literally
seen it
refuse to watch it.
I'm not interested in seeing
Again, personal
Scarlett
opinion.
Johansson play an
And they
Asian
can reason
character.
it out however they want to. It's a hard, solid no
Listen,
from me.
The only explanation they have is Hollywood. That's it. That's all they have.
Well, apparently, because like the creator of Ghost in a Shell apparently was brought on as like an executive producer or whatever. They were trying
Right,
to
it was
say
justified.
that in the manga, it's never actually specified what race she is.
Oh my god, but it was a Japanese manga.
I'm like, but I'm like, no.
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 Oh my god.
Absolutely not. Anyways, we'll get
Anywho.
into Hollywood's whitewashing of Asian people on a different episode.
Yeah, or YouTube.
Or YouTube,
YouTube
yes.
video.
Oh my god, another
Exciting.
platform's coming
Stay
out.
tuned.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I've got some LGBTQIA2
girl.
plus mangas I
Oh,
want
I
to bring
love
up
that.
because obviously we have to talk about
please,
that.
yeah.
So I've got two I want to talk about. These are the ones that really stood out for me when I read them. The first one is Claudine. So Claudine is one of the only mangas that has a trans protagonist. So Claudine is about a trans man who you follow his transition and his different relationships that he has in terms of friendships, in terms of romances.
Oh.
And when I first saw the manga, I wasn't quite sure what they were trying to do with it in terms of the message they were trying to convey, and I was very like worried that it was going to be super problematic. And I
Right.
haven't read it for a very long time, but it was oddly very progressive, and there was nothing that was super triggering for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're looking for a manga that has a trans person as the protagonist, Claudine is definitely one that you should check out. The creator of Claudine is a very, very iconic manga producer. So definitely check that out. The other one that I was super into was Our Dreams at Dusk. So Our Dreams at Dusk is a manga that was created by a non-binary author-illustrator who's also asexual. So this is someone who is actually a part of the LGBTQIA2 plus community who wrote a manga about being queer. So this story follows a gay teen, a mask-presenting gay teen, and they are outed as being gay, and it does not go so well. And they are basically contemplating potentially, trigger warning, taking their life. But then they end up meeting someone. Their name is Anonymous. Like, actually, that's their name. Their name is
Oh.
Anonymous. And they end up kind of leading him into the underground world of the LGBTQIA2 plus community within the community that he was living in. And they just start coming into their own. And it's just an exploration, coming of age, being a queer person. So that was really beautiful for me because I know a lot of people in the LGBTQIA2 plus community have oftentimes, again, trigger warning, had suicidal thoughts, might have contemplated suicide, especially in a younger age. So to see a manga that showcased that, and then also showcased finding your found family and being around people who are in your community and starting to thrive and flourish, was, for me, who grew up in a very religious, very isolated, very old community, this was like a very hopeful book for me. And I definitely resonated, even though the character is mask presenting, I just resonated with that character and their struggle with being outed, and it wasn't their choice, and then everyone treating them so horribly. I, unfortunately, when I lived in that community, did not find a queer community. I never found anyone in that space until I moved back to Vancouver. But then I found my family here in Vancouver, so it resonated even deeper for me. But Our Dreams at Dusk, definitely check it out. It's obviously a little hard at the beginning of the manga, but then it definitely gets very, very uplifting.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and this isn't actually a manga, this is just a Japanese novel, but lots of you will probably know this. Vampire Hunter D.
Oh.
It's not a manga, but it was probably like the first, I guess, Japanese novel that I bought myself.
Oh.
All my other manga had been like Christmas presents, birthday presents. My dad just picked it up for me. So this was something that I actually went out and bought because I wanted it. So I had, there's a Vampire Hunter D movie. I knew about the movie. I hadn't seen it yet, but I knew the kind of basic plot line of the movie. So it's basically what it is. A vampire hunter named D roams a very dystopic kind of post-apocalyptic wasteland hunting vampires. There's also humans that hunt vampires. So it's basically just him hunting down the kind of like an elder vampire who has a lot of power and a lot of control, and is just kind of this battle with this one elder vampire who has his own story. And
wait, why does this sound exactly like the premise for Van Helsing?
it is like the Japanese Van Helsing.
Wait, which came first? I'm curious.
Probably Van Helsing.
That's wild.
Because Van Helsing is in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Van Helsing is the doctor that's like fighting against. So
yeah, that's just like that's like the entire premise of like that's really cool though.
I think Bram Stoker's Dracula came out in like the 30s or 40s.
A very long time
so
ago.
It probably predates it.
But whatever.
Vampire Hunter D's better.
Always.
Sorry,
course.
Hugh Jackman.
Whatever.
But yeah, so not a manga, but it is a Japanese novel that I still own and I absolutely love.
That's really cool.
The anime is really good too. Definitely watch the anime.
I was like, I always like really like Van Helsing was always one of the movies that I like loved when I was growing up.
The Hugh Jackman one?
Yeah. So
and
this
Kate
would be like
Beckinsale.
a really cool. Oh yeah.
I own it. I love it. We can definitely have add it to the list, Mama.
We have like this ongoing movie list, but also like it would be cool to watch that anime or read the book.
Yes. Gorgeous. You can borrow.
Oh, thanks. Yours is obviously in English, right?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Oh, honey, she's getting there, but she cannot read fluent.
No.
And even if I could read it, I wouldn't know what I was reading. I could sound it out.
Yeah, totally.
I could verbalize what I'm reading, but I wouldn't know what I'm saying.
No. Yeah, we can read Japanese words, but we won't know what they mean in English.
What they are.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're working on it.
Gorgeous. I mean, that's like the goal one day, to be able to read a manga in its language, in its original
get the
form.
full experience.
Mama. I mean, I personally, when I buy English manga, it still has to be in like it still has to be
in the format of like from back to front.
I'm not reading. Yeah. I'm not opening the book to the left, Mama.
No.
I'm opening it to the right.
I don't even know if they do that.
I hope not.
I don't think.
That'd be some cultural appropriation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could say that like like North American graphic novels like might be anyway.
But yeah, I refuse.
Yeah. Just so were all the mangas that you read growing up, like in physical form, or did you read?
They were always in physical form.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I read all of mine online.
Yeah.
If I was reading them for the first time, it was always online.
Yes.
We actually had a cool conversation with one of our coworkers today about manga.
Yeah.
And they were like showing us the manga form of an anime that Sakura and I are gonna watch tonight. And they like opened up the website and I was like, oh my god, Manga Fox.
Oh!
I was like, that's exactly like the website that I used to use.
Gorgeous.
It's
just
cool.
to find manga, or can you physically read the manga?
You can read them on there.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you can like sort, or at least I haven't been on the website since I was reading manga, so in over 10 years.
Yeah.
But you used to be able to sort by like genre. So if you were into shoujo, you could search just shoujo.
Yeah.
Or if you're into only action or magic or whatever it is that you were looking for. If you're only looking for smut, girl, you could also just only look for smutty manga.
Oh, honey.
And I'm not going to say that I didn't do that.
That's what I would immediately go for.
You could search for whatever you want. Yeah, it was really cool. I think it's now called FanFox.
Okay.
.com, but when you go to fanfox.com, it still loads as MangaFox.
Okay.
I'm not sure why they had to change that. I'm not unfamiliar with what's happened over the years.
Yes.
But our coworker who was talking to us today was saying that they had to change it for whatever reason.
Interesting.
So maybe they
didn't secure that ULR.
Yeah, or like maybe it's kind
URL.
of like URL, because I don't know how legal it is to like have manga available online for free, right? It's kind of like those movie watching websites.
Oh yeah.
So maybe it's kind of like how the Pirate Bay
the copyright laws, Mama.
Yeah, it has different like versions of the same URL so that it doesn't get tracked down or taken down too hard.
Totally.
Yes, I always used MangaFox.
Yeah.
For my all of my manga reads.
Totally.
Needs.
Yeah.
And then my friend who got me into manga to begin with, the same one, actually convinced me one time when we were younger to start our own website that had like large volumes of manga accessible to it so that you could download manga off of it.
Ooh.
Do not ask me what it was called because I don't know.
I love it.
Don't remember. I'm pretty sure like it was all her. Like she downloaded all of the manga and uploaded it and just kind of
did it.
Yeah, like we did it. I don't think it was a lot of different mangas.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she knew that I was like really not interested in that part of our like manga reading sessions.
Oh my god.
Because it was all her. But yeah, we had a website. I'm not sure what happened to it or if it's still out there or anything like that.
Can you imagine?
I don't even know what hosting platform it was with because she did it. But yeah, that would be I hate that. Oh. Anyways,
my stomach was like, yes.
Yes.
My stomach was agreeing with Kyoko.
It's waving around. Yeah. But yeah, I was into the, being on your computer all the time generation. So I feel like it only makes sense.
Now that I'm like an adult, I definitely want to start like collecting the physical copies of my probably like my top, I would say like maybe my top 5 favorite manga.
Depending on how long they are too, right? Because there's so many volumes.
I know. So. I just want to have at least one physical copy of like each one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see.
When we were in Japan, we went to a couple different like bookstores just out of
Ooh.
pure curiosity. And obviously
Carly was like, we need to hit up a bookstore.
you know that Carly was all about going to the bookstore.
You were like, should we just pop into this bookstore?
Oh,
Carly was already in there.
Carly's like, yeah, she's like deep into the shelves. And you already know that like most of the shelves had manga on it. And I remember I have a picture that maybe I'll share on socials, but it was like an entire shelf, and the entire shelf was dedicated to all of the volumes of Dragon Ball Z. And all of the spines
Were they
put
expensive?
together. I don't know. I didn't pick it up.
Yeah.
Was trying not to touch very much because we were during
I feel like Dragon Ball Z stuff is always so expensive.
Possibly. I don't know if it would have been there. I guess so.
What were you saying about the spines? Did they all join to form an image?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was really cool. When all of them were together, it like showed all of the different characters. And I think,
my God. I love that.
Like a Dragon Ball with all the stars on it.
It's to make you buy every one because you have to complete the image.
Yeah, you have to have the image.
Oh my God.
I'll share that photo or something on our socials when this episode goes out.
I love that. Oh.
Appropriate sounds for
An
tonight.
appropriate noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's not well versed in manga, get on it. Get on fanfox.com.
Oh my God.
We've made you a couple recommendations. A lot of the ones though, I think that we have recommended are like longer volumes of reading, but obviously
Yes.
you can just like test it out and see what's good.
Yeah, totally.
Get familiarized with all of it. Or if you've like only really watched anime, it might be worth your time to go back and read the mangas.
Oh yeah, if you have a favorite anime, reading the manga is like a must-have.
Especially like if you grew up like a big fan of Inuyasha, for example.
Yes.
The finale of the Inuyasha anime doesn't actually reflect the finale of the manga very well.
The manga, yes.
So you should go back and
I
want to
read
the final volume.
I want to
of
read the manga
Inuyasha.
for Inuyasha for sure.
Yeah, but it would be like really, really long. Obviously.
Gorgeous.
Quite a dedicated time.
Yes.
But thank you all for listening to us for another week.
Yeah, thanks for
Hafu
stopping
It.
um, by for another episode of chaos.
You know, absolute
absolute
unhinged
chaos.
We are going to take this opportunity at the end of the episode to just once again plug that we are having a nice little collaboration with
Here
the
we
Vancouver
go.
Japanese Language School and the Exploration Festival for Asian History Month.
Hashtag exploration.
Hashtag Exploration Festival.
Here we go.
Definitely keep tabs on that. It's going to be a 4-episode series on our Japanese Canadian heritage and history and our individual journeys with that, released every Wednesday on both our YouTube and podcasting posting sites.
So you all need to go to our YouTube and make sure you subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so that you get a notification when those videos
when
go
those notifications
up.
start popping off.
And if we haven't intrigued you yet, there will be a new theme song presented in those 4 episodes. Possibly only ever to be used in those 4 episodes. Who knows?
Oh, so you would
Maybe
like
we'll
really
get
want to
wild.
listen to this. You would make sure you did not miss
you
this.
You really want to make sure that you listen to these episodes.
Yeah.
And or watch them.
Definitely.
Anyway, that's enough of the plug.
Where can people find you on the social medias?
Totally. So, as you guys know, I am Kyoko. So my my username on all social media platforms pretty much is This Is Kyoko.
Because this is Kyoko.
Because this is Kyoko. I'm available on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify for music, and
TikTok.
Fine. I don't ever post on
She
there.
reluctantly says.
There's no point. Don't come to me on TikTok.
Oh my.
Unless you want to send me things, because I always
my
have a good
God.
laugh. But yeah.
I
What about
love.
you, Saku?
Yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at saku.miki. That is SAKU.MIKI.
Who are you, the Cookie Monster? Here we go.
The letter of the day today is M for manga. Oh my God, 1M. 2M. I mean, we've been talking about vampires a lot, so.
2 A's.
Oh my God. 2 Hafus.
Anyway,
my
you can
God.
also just, if you're not interested in following along with us individually, you can just follow for some updates on our Instagram account at Hafu It. Only available on Instagram.
Gorgeous.
The gram.
The gram.
Follow us along.
Follow us along.
We will talk to you next week.
Everyone be safe. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.